I trust DOD. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this. The Marines, my money is always on the Marines. I don't know if you take the island or you blockade the island, but I know this. The day we control that island, this regime, this terrorist regime, has been weakened. It will die on a vine.
Hi again, everybody. It is 5 o'clock now in Washington, D.C. I'm Alicia Menendez, in today for Nicole Wallace. For the sake of a purely political conversation, think of it kind of like a stress test, an unprecedented experiment into just how much the MAGA coalition will tolerate before whatever binds it together weakens or perhaps breaks altogether. Because what is going on in Iran right now, a war initiated by someone who promised he would keep us out of them, is increasingly exposing some pretty serious cracks between Donald Trump's political allies. We showed you some of that interview with Senator Lindsey Graham last hour, but consider now the backlash the American people observed as a result of those comments, invoking Iwo Jima, an operation that resulted in the deaths of nearly 7,000 American troops, to advocate for a similar strategy in Iran. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a card-carrying member of Trump's MAGA coalition, said she was deeply upset at the lack of respect for life, suggesting Senator Graham was, quote, acting as if our troops are expendable cattle. Her Republican colleague, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, seemed to agree, insisting Graham, quote, has one foreign policy: send someone else's kid to war. Those weren't the only such responses either. Indeed, the America First corner of Donald Trump's support, even those who granted Trump latitude in the dawn days of this Iran conflict, are starting to reckon with the possibility that Trump might follow the advice of another corner of support, one advocating for boots on the ground and billions upon billions of dollars in war funding. Remember Joe Kent, the now former director of the National Counterterrorism Center under Donald Trump, resigned from that position in protest over the war? Well, in an interview with the Washington Post, Kent described why he's been so public, with multiple outlets in voicing opposition. From the Post, quote, it's a concerted effort, Kent said, to rally members of the president's Make America Great Again movement and ensure he hears dissenting voices on an issue that has divided Republicans. While some Trump supporters are inclined to use military might to influence global affairs, others, like Kent, say they chose to support him in part because he voiced scorn for America's earlier wars. A widening rift inside Donald Trump's political coalition is where we begin this hour. Political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill is here. Also with us, political analyst and host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller, is here for the hour. Plus, retired U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath. She is a candidate for the open Senate seat in Kentucky. It is good to see you all. Amy, I want to read just a little bit to you from the Washington Post on Joe Kent. They say Kent declined to disclose what the administration may be planning, but said Trump appears to have some really key decisions to make in the next couple of weeks. The potential deployment of U.S. ground troops makes me very nervous, he added, citing recent reporting that the president is considering seizing Karg Island, Iran's main hub for oil exports. I just think that would be a disaster, Kent said, of deploying U.S. troops there. It would essentially be giving Iran a bunch of hostages on an island that they could barrage with drones and missiles. Amy, your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, look, Karg Island is not the golden key for unlocking the Strait of Hormuz. You can't control the island without boots on the ground. Bombing it from above does not mean you control the dirt there. And so they know that you would have to seize it. And you have a problem of logistics. I mean, when Lindsey Graham's talking about, well, I trust the Marines, we're bringing 5,000 Marines in there and it'll just be like Iwo Jima. I mean, that is crazy. In Iwo Jima, as you mentioned, we lost 7,000 Marines. This is ridiculous. Marine expeditionary units hold about 2,500 Marines, and they can hold land for 10 to 15 days, but then they become targets for drone, cruise, ballistic missile attacks. Then the ship would have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which is still closed. We don't have any element of surprise right now. So they know we're coming. That is also a factor. So, this is not going to be easy. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that this is a war. Yes, it's a war that the president chose to start, that the American people don't want. And how he's going to achieve the political objectives, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Claire, you have new CBS YouGov polling. And I just want to say, to echo the point that Amy made there, the American public sees this as a war of choice. 60% say it is a war of choice. 60% disapprove of the war. That is an uptick from earlier this month. 57% say it is going badly. If you are Democrats and you see those numbers, what do you do with them?
Well, obviously, I think especially when you start putting it in context in terms of how much money we're spending. He's asked for $200 billion, and that's not counting what we would be spending if we actually started putting boots on the ground, either in Kharg Island or in Iran itself. So when Democrats start comparing, for example, this is the kind of money that would restore everyone's cuts to Obamacare. This is the kind of money that would be helpful to people that are trying to figure out how to buy a home for the first time. This would be really helpful to students who are now facing really difficult decisions as they have to repay lots of student loans. So this is a lot of money to be spending, and I think it all ties up with the economic case that Democrats are going to make. You're not better off than you were before Donald Trump was elected. You can't afford to fill up your gas tank. You can't afford to go to the grocery store. You can't afford to get the health care you need. It all ties back to affordability, and if Democrats are smart, they will tie it up in that package, because I think that's the one that voters are going to respond to most.
Oh, it's what we already hear, to your point, Claire, voters responding to. Tim, you had Trump's UN ambassador, Mike Waltz, presented with those polling numbers. Tim, here is how he responded.
I could quote a whole slew of polls that show, for example, self-described MAGA Republicans give the president a 100% approval rating. A majority say the number one job of the commander-in-chief is to keep Americans safe. I can point here to an NBC poll. 90% of Republicans, broader Republicans, support Trump's effort to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. And I have to point out that no one should be surprised here. President Trump has said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. 2016 campaign, 2020 campaign. Since 2024, he's said it 74 times out in the public space.
But if he is going to commit any kind of ground troops or boots on the ground, don't you think he needs to persuade the majority of American people, not just his base?
I think the president will keep all options on the table to secure these objectives.
All right, Tim, two things I want to pull apart there. One, the polling. I mean, you're not the president of MAGA. You're the president of the United States. It should be relevant to you how the American populace feels about the fact that you have taken us to war. And then this idea that no one should be surprised that a president who ran as though he was going to be America first, that he wasn't going to get involved in anyone else's business, is suddenly well involved in other people's business. The fact that there are 50,000 U.S. troops already stationed in the region, Tim, the answer is nonsensical.
It is, and I think that's why Mike Waltz, who had already been fired from one job, was out there delivering it, and not the vice president, who has been very happy to go and defend Trump up until today, or up until this war, or Marco Rubio even, who's started to fade a little bit more to the background. I don't think they want to have to be out there spinning nonsense and spinning when you know that the president might pull the rug out from under you at any minute of what you say. And it was just 48 hours ago that he was going to obliterate all of Iran and obliterate their nuclear program, and obliterate their power plants and their energy infrastructure. And then now they have 5 days to figure it out. He's all over the place. He's changed his messaging minute by minute. So puts a guy like Mike Waltz there in a very challenging situation, and he didn't handle it very well. And the polling, look, like I think it's better than it's going to get. It usually takes a little while for things to seep into the polling. People that have seen gas prices go up, for example, for 1 week, if they're MAGA and, is maybe a little annoying at the pump for 1 week, you get called and you're still kind of wearing your team jersey and saying you're supportive of the president. A month later, 2 months later, when you're really feeling a crunch on your family budget over this, when Trump hasn't explained what the objectives are, when he hasn't really explained what a win would be. I mean, when we started this, we were going to get complete surrender from Iran and the regime was going to be toppled. And now they talk about their objectives as if it's like, well, if we degrade their naval capabilities, then it's really a win. And it's like, I don't think that most Americans, even MAGA Americans, are on board with degrading the number of ships Iran has in exchange for paying more in gasoline, paying more in groceries, as Claire laid out, having their tax dollars be spent on that rather than on things that they need. So I think at some level here, the polling is the lagging indicator.
Yes.
And, you know, if I were the Democrats, I'd be putting my pedal to the metal on this and just really be screaming from the rooftops about how Trump should end this war now, and they should be opposing the war on every front.